Okay, so today we're starting with 7.3. 7.3 is basically looking at the perceptions of youth and adulthood as stages of the lifespan. And so this is kind of like a bit confusing in terms of the actual, what does this topic actually mean? But I'll explain what it means, okay? Remember, your perceptions about something are what you judge something as, or what you feel when you look at something, or what you feel about a certain idea or concept, okay? That's a perception. So in very simple terms, this entire topic is looking at how do adults view young people and how do young people view adults, okay? A lot of the time in the previous spread that you did last week, you were looking at the different stages of the lifespan. So when you're young, middle adulthood, older adulthood, when you're a child. So basically at each of these stages of the lifespan, we view ourselves as individuals and we view the different stages of the lifespan differently. So you guys are mostly in the adolescent stage right now. And the way that you might view someone who's 70 or 80 years old might be very different from the way you view somebody in their 20s or somebody in their 30s, okay? So this topic is all about how we view people who are in different stages of the lifespan than ourselves. So before we actually look at the topic, why is there a blank page? Oh, here we go. So basically, how do older people see or perceive you? So I want you guys to just either in the chat box type up the answer, or just, you know, unmute yourself and say what you think. How do you guys think older people view young people in today's generation? Just give me adjectives that older people might use to describe young people.
Irresponsible.
Irresponsible, yeah. What else?
Immature.
Immature, yep, very good. So let me see if I can actually write these in the box.
Stubborn, miss.
Stubborn, very good. What else? Immature.
Dramatic.
Irresponsible. What was the other one? Stubborn.
Yes, miss.
What?
Neglect.
Yeah, neglectful, right? That's true. Well, not that's true, but that's true from the perspective of an old person. Okay, what else? We got one more box to fill. Immature, irresponsible, stubborn, neglectful. What else?
Not socially active.
Yeah, like maybe like glued to their screens all the time, like not actually like outgoing. Yeah, that's a good idea. So not outgoing. Outgoing. Not socially active enough. Good. So these are the different ways, or these are the perceptions that old people have towards young people. Okay. And a lot of the time, older people, even though older people or elderly people were at some time or at some point young themselves, they think that when they were young people, the world was a better place. There wasn't all this technology and all that stuff. Okay. So obviously, you know, old people don't really understand that they were once young people because they feel like they lived in a better time and a different time. Okay, good ideas there. So let's go to the next slide and I'll explain this a little bit more. So when we're looking at perceptions of youth, we can basically divide our perceptions or our judgments into a few different things. So anyone that's older than a young person doesn't have to be someone in their 70s or 80s. It could even be their parents who might be in their 30s, 40s, or 50s. It could be an older sibling who might be in their late 20s, okay? Anyone that's older than young people can view them in various ways. Some older people view young people as positive individuals, okay? They view them with a positive image. What does positive image mean? What does positive image mean? It means that they view young people as being positive, ambitious, hardworking, and, you know, always kind of like, you know, happy-go-lucky kind of people. Okay, so if you look at this picture here, you see all the people are kind of like happy. They're kind of like, they are kind of glued to their screens. One of them's reading a book, but they seem like they're like, you know, they seem like they are happy about life and kind of like, you know, optimistic. So this is kind of like a positive image, okay, or positive perception. A negative judgment or negative perception that some older people might have about young people is that young people are lazy, selfish, intimidating, or frightening. And I remember when I did this topic last year with my last year Unit 1 and 2 students, in the previous slide, when I asked them to brainstorm things about like how old people view young people, I had the same kind of response. Like they gave me all these negative words. Not a single student gave me like a positive word about how old people view young people. So a lot of us do believe that in the media in popular culture, old people or older people actually view young people as being negative. So they view young people as being lazy, selfish, intimidating, frightening even. Okay, and this is an article from one of the papers in the UK that actually, what's it called? That actually put on the front cover page like this article about this boy who actually killed somebody, and they called him the devil child. And so this kind of brings us to this question of, okay, if an adult had done this, would the adult have been called the same thing? Okay, and a lot of the time the media does kind of portray young people as being irresponsible and reckless. Positive social context is related to the fact that a lot of people say this, actually even I say it sometimes, and I'm not even like that old, but like we're like, oh my God, this generation these days, young people these days, they have everything that they need, all these resources, all this, you know, information, but they don't use it as well as they should. Okay, so that's the positive social context.
Oh my God, so old.
The positive social context is basically that, you know, people have these opportunities, young people have so much opportunities, so they're so lucky and privileged to live in this time in society, and that's the positive social context. The negative social context is that we kind of flip the coin and we say, okay, even though young people live in this time and age, society really treats young people badly. Like when a young person goes and applies for their first job, they get pushed back saying that you don't have enough experience. Or everyone thinks that if something bad happens in a community, then it was the young people that were responsible for it. So that's the negative social context. Social context refers to situation or the social environment, in other words. So overall, the research shows that perceptions of young people tend to be more negative than positive. And you guys kind of proved this to me when we did our previous activity on the slide where you gave me all these negative words, okay? And that's what the research shows as well, that we will tend to describe young people as being negative rather than having positive or good qualities. So if we go to the next slide now, why do we as a society, why do people that are older than young people have these views about young people being negative or having negative qualities? Well, number one is, and you would have learned this in English, is this thing about biased reporting, okay? So a lot of the time, if your media outlets are always churning out articles and churning out news that, oh, this young person recently got up to this, or, you know, killer child, devil child, or juvenile delinquents, and all this like bad stuff about young people, then obviously you are not going to feel like young people are up to any good. In fact, the achievements of young people tend to be less reported. And so a lot of these new reporters who are coming in, new journalists, new media outlets like BuzzFeed and stuff that are all over social media, they are trying to celebrate the achievements of young people because they feel that young people are undervalued. Media representation of youth. So whether you look at an innocent show like The Simpsons, where Bart Simpson is always getting up to trouble, or whether you look at a show like Summer Heights High, where Jonah is bullying another kid and he's giving attitude to his teachers and he's just being downright rude, you know, basically that is showing you or reinforcing that idea that youth are narcissistic, lazy and rude. And this entire selfie culture, this entire obsession with things like Snapchat, all of this is kind of like mediated by youth. So again, it kind of like builds into that idea. However, older people also see young people and they even envy young people sometimes because they feel like young people have all these opportunities in front of them and that your youth is the time where you can live your life the best. Even though this is a romanticized belief, meaning that it's a bit overrated, it's a bit overhyped, because obviously we can achieve whatever we want at any age for most people. Okay, so obviously older people kind of envy youth as well in some ways. Now, it's important to remember that as with any other kind of mistreatment, if you've got more interactions or more exposure to those kinds of people or that age group, you will have a more positive perception. So if I am a young person and I'm constantly going and volunteering at aged care homes, I'm constantly going and working with like older volunteers in things like soup kitchens, in things like homeless shelters, they are going to think of young people as being responsible, as being involved in the community, okay? So it's about old people, not just pushing out young people and saying, oh, you know what, we don't even care about young people are useless, but about kind of both sides, so young people with old people with young people, getting together and trying to interact and basically work together then. Alrighty, so All right, now I want you guys to think about some ideas of how do you think, so you guys are obviously the youth, how do you think most young people view adults, okay? And by adults, we're not just talking about really old people in aged care homes like 80, 90-year-olds. We're talking about anyone above the age of 30, okay? So anyone above the age of 30, how do you guys view them? Give me some words to describe how you view those people.
Fossils.
Okay, so one person has mentioned mature. What else?
Bossy.
Bossy, okay. Bossy, let me write these down. Okay, what else? Think. So mature, and then we had bossy. What else?
Is there a word for thinks they're smarter than us?
Thinks they're smart. It's like superior, I guess.
Yes,
Feel
that.
that they're superior, yeah? Feel that they are superior. Okay, what else? We have 2 more boxes to fill.
Miss, they look depressed.
Depressed, okay. So you think them as being kind of depressed about their lives, yeah. What else?
Angry.
Angry. We can put depressed and angry into one. I guess they're connected.
Yeah.
What else?
Misunderstanding.
Understanding?
They're not understanding.
Like not understanding.
Oh, not understanding. Okay, so inconsiderate or unempathetic maybe.
Impatient.
All of the above.
Imbeciles.
Okay, I can't keep up with the amount of negative things you all are saying. Impatient.
Oh,
Okay. And then what was the other one? Oh, unempathetic. So they're not empathetic at all. They don't understand what young people are going through. I can't even write anymore. Okay, so we have so many for this one. Okay, good. So we got mature, we got bossy. So out of all of these, we've only got one kind of positive one, which is mature. And the rest of them are all a little bit negative. Anyway, we'll go on to the next slide now. And we will try to, ooh, all my scribbles have just come up. Clear. Okay, so what are the perceptions of adults that we have? First of all, we have to remember that adulthood is a much bigger life stage of the lifespan because it's actually divided into 3 main stages, which are early adulthood, middle adulthood, and late adulthood. Okay, so early adulthood is kind of like your 30s, late adulthood, you know, is like very late, like 60s, 70s, 80s. Now, the perception of adults that people have depends on the stage concerned. So you guys might be, if you've got an auntie who's about 35 years old, you might be a little bit okay with talking to her one-on-one maybe, or an uncle. But if you've know someone who's like in their 90s or 80s, it might be a little bit harder for you to relate to them and them to relate to you. Okay, so obviously, early adults, so people who are in their mid-20s, like 25 and above, their perceptions, what they view, how they view older adults is very similar to that of young people. As adults get older though, young people tend to see them as being more out of touch. So if your mum gets a new smartphone or your dad gets a new smartphone and they want you to explain to them how to use it or something, you might like roll your eyes. You might be like, oh my God, what's the point of you having this phone if you don't even know how to use it? Like you might like, you know, be thinking those things. And a lot of the time, even though older people feel that they're more superior knowledge-wise, young people feel like they're more superior in terms of how to use technology and all that other stuff. So obviously, when we're looking at misunderstandings between adults and children, so if you look at that first picture here, the first picture of the girl kind of giving her mum some attitude there. So again, that's kind of like showing you the perception that this teenage girl has towards her mother, that her mother, like you guys said, is probably inconsiderate, is kind of bossy, doesn't understand what she's going through. Now, adults in the later stage of adulthood are often perceived as being wise and experienced. A lot of the time, you might give your parents attitude, but when you go overseas or, you know, if you've got your grandparents living here, you might be a little bit kinder towards them. And you might understand that they are elderly, that they do come from a different time, that the way they were raised is different. But then you won't apply that same mindset to your parents. You might be like, Mom, why don't you understand me? because you expect your parents to be on the same page as you, but you don't expect that much of your grandmother or your grandfather. Okay, so essentially that's because adults who are in the later stage of adulthood, so really old, are often perceived as being quite wise. They have a lot of life experience. They've lived through so many different events. You know, they've given birth to so many children and grandchildren. So they've got these experience, okay? And for that reason, older adults like your grandmothers or grandfathers are usually perceived more positively compared to your mother or father, who are more in the middle stage of adulthood. That's the positive side. The negative side of later stage of adulthood is that older people can be victims of ageism. Okay, and a lot of the time, if we see, you know, an older woman, for example, you know, if we see an older woman still working at a job, we might be like, oh, why is she still working? Like, you know, why can't she just go home and just stay on her pension? Or, you know, we might be against an older woman using IVF to give birth to a baby or something like that. So again, older people can be victims of ageism. So in the same way that we perceive them as wise and experienced, we also feel like there are certain things in life they can't do when they get really, really old. And so that's, again, the negative side of older adulthood. Now, obviously, like we just said in the previous slide as well, it is possible for a young person to view adults in both positive and negative perceptions, and that's what most of us feel. Most of us, or most of you, would feel that even though your parents can be kind of inconsiderate at times, they kind of do have your best interests at heart as well in most cases. So it is totally fine and totally backed up by research to say that most young people view adults as having both a positive side to them and a negative side. Okay, so that's basically our perceptions of adults. So again, how we perceive adults, or how you guys perceive adults as being young people, is dependent on which adult we're looking at. Are they an early adult, are they a middle adult, or a later elderly kind of adult? Okay, I think that's bringing us, yeah, that brings us to the end of today's spread. Okay, so what I'm just going to do before I quickly, before I let you guys go, is I just want to show you how to get to the resources for this week. If I can share my screen. Okay, share screen. Okay, so if I go here, okay, so if you can see my screen now, so when you go back to the Schoolbox page, you can see that obviously when you see the class banner as Welcome to Unit 1 HHD, can everyone see the course outline here? This big box? Yeah, so basically what you're doing is you're just going to click on Term 3, Week 2, Work to Do plus Resources. Basically, and then yeah, all the work will come up. So today we covered basically perceptions of youth. So you're just going to do 7.3 questions 1 to 3 today. And then tomorrow we'll cover 7.4. And then after that, we'll cover the next bit on Friday. Okay, so that's basically all you have to do for today. Now, all your resources, by the way, before I forget to mention that, so your to-do list is up here. And if you scroll further down the same page, you'll have, it says activities. These aren't actually activities, they're just resources. So if you click on, for example, Chapter 7 questions checklist, you click on that, it will automatically start downloading. Yes, it will automatically start downloading to your computer, okay? Those of you who might have left your textbook at school, or you, for example, want to use a soft copy, whatever, I've put the Chapter 7 versions of both the old book and new book on here. So depending on which one you use, the old one is the orange one with the orange cover, and the new one is the one with the purplish cover. So again, depending on which one you use, you can download that as well. And the PowerPoint for today is on the first attachment there, Chapter 7 slides. Okay, so before I let you all go, any questions or anything you need clarified? Or are we all good? Okay, I'm going to assume you're all good then. So I'm going to stop the recording here.